And that. One more time. If you're 18 to 24, let me hear you. All right, 25 to 34. 18-year-olds, mmeshindwa. 35 to 44. I like my age. 45 to 54. 55 to 64. Oh, yes. 65 and above. Awesome. All right, big hands to yourself. Big hand, big hand, big hand, big hand. So you see, we have a different age group range in the room, so we can all interact together and work together, right? I have another activity to make sure that you are awake. How many of you heard that song, Awake, Alive, Alert, Enthusiastic? I know the parents in the room. If you know that song, put your hand up. You don't know it? Let me teach you. I'm teaching you something new. All right, if I say alive, shoulder, awake, your eyes, alert, your ears, enthusiastic, hands up. So I'd like you to stand up. Stand up. Some of you didn't make it to the gym this morning, so this is your free gym activity. I accept M-Pesa transactions. All right? So, alive is where? Shoulder. Awake, eyes, alert, ears, enthusiastic. I'll try my best. I don't have an angelic voice like the choir had, but I'll try my level best. All right? You ready? Awake. I'll go slowly first. Awake, alert, alive. Hey, confusion. Let's start again. Confusion in the room or awake, alert. They say what I do what I say. Alive, shoulders. Alive, wapi? Where? Awake, eyes. I have my person demonstrating. Karagania. Alert, ears for you to listen. Enthusiastic. Awake, alert.
Wait, where's shoulder?
I'm taking too much time from this plenary, please. Simple instructions. Even you don't confuse people, Karagania, now. If you can't do it, step down. Alive, shoulders. Awake, eyes. Alert, ears. Enthusiastic. We are ready. I will sing. I'm alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic. I'm awake, alert, alive, enthusiastic. I'm alive, awake, alert, alive, awake, alert. Enthusiastic, sit down. Sit, give a hand of claps to yourself if you followed instructions. If you did not, I'd like to welcome the moderator for this plenary right now. It's for the youth, it's energized. So the youth people will show us how to be awake, alert, alive, and enthusiastic. With a great round of applause, help me welcome John Mark to the stage. He's a communication specialist from RIS. John Mark. John Mark.
Thank you very much, Carissa, for that very warm introduction, and also for the applause that you guys have given me today. So I'm going to be the moderator for this first session, and I'm going to tell you for free that it's not going to be the typical sessions that you've been used to since the conference started. So to all protocols observed, good morning and karibu sana, welcome. I saw a very cool thing that GeoHabari did yesterday where they were going around and asking people to say hi in their local language. So just say hi back to me in your local language in your head, and then I'll assume that I've listened to that. So I hope today feels a little less like a traditional panel discussion and more like an actual conversation. one where we can reflect, challenge ideas, and hopefully leave with something meaningful to think about. So my name, as you've heard, is John Mark Ochieng. I am a communications specialist at REIS, where I work across science, innovation, and public engagement. So this is just me saying that I try to translate complex information people can understand. Sorry about the technical hitch. It wouldn't be an innovation conference if there are no technical hitches. So today's session is built around one simple idea. The future is here. It's not somewhere in 2040, and it's already happening. So across Kenya, across Africa, across the world, young people are already shaping systems, using data, solving problems in communities, driving innovation, and influencing change in real time. So perhaps the real question is not whether young people are ready to lead. The question is whether institutions are ready to welcome the young people who are actively shaping the ecosystems that we currently have. And one important thing before we begin, this conversation is not only happening on the stage. And I remember I had a few conversations out there with my fellow young people, and I was telling them that the worst thing that you can do for yourself, especially in such a setup, is to think that your ideas do not matter. And in my experience, most people who are already in these decision-making platforms or rooms, they care a lot more about what a young person has to say than what an older person has to say. So this is just to encourage you that anytime we have networking sessions, please disturb these people. And I know the DGKSA is a witness because I always disturb him with questions. So throughout this session, we invite you not just to listen, but to reflect, react, and contribute. And when I say contribute, I am going to pick on random people. So if I know your name, just avoid eye contact or direct eye contact, because I might pick on you. And to get us started, we want to hear directly from all of you in the room. And I know you had an experience with this yesterday, where we had the Slido on the screen, where we're going to ask you a question, and then you're going to use Slido to answer these questions. And then now we can reflect on that before we proceed. So once the Slido has been displayed on the screen, you can take out your phones and scan the link. There it is. And this is the only time I encourage you to use your phones. So please scan the link. And remember, you can use your camera or the QR scanner. So while we wait as that happens, this is just to get an understanding of what people think. So the question is, what is the greatest barrier preventing young people from shaping the future of data, technology, and innovation? So is it skills development, leadership opportunities, decision-making power, or mentorship support? So we can notice the percentage is changing, and now we can see clearly the future of data, technology, and innovation. We can see currently leadership opportunities has a higher percentage, and then we have decision-making power, which is close to mentorship and support, and then skills development is the lowest. So I feel like most young people in this room have the skills. What is lacking is now the leadership opportunities and the decision-making power, as well as mentorship support. So remember, in this room, it's not just delegates who are attending, it's not just speakers, it's not just CEOs from organizations, it is also mentors. And a mentor can only mentor you if there is value that you bring. So this is also to encourage that you also need to think how you can approach that. So I see skills development is still at the bottom. So yeah, I think we can end the Slido there for now, just to save on the time. And I'd like to encourage the room to keep some of these responses in mind as we move through the session, because like Karagania said, most of the speakers who are going to be on this panel are very intelligent, and they're the ones who might reflect on some of these things that have been mentioned, or some of these answers that have popped up on the Slido. So we often speak about young people in terms of potential or future leadership, but our next speakers are not waiting for permission to lead. They're already shaping systems, building communities, and create change today. And I know since the conference started, we have practiced how to applaud and to welcome speakers on stage. So the rule is simple. You do not stop clapping until they get on stage. And then if you have the energy, you had breakfast, you can woo as loud as you can. So first, we will hear from Furaha Lydia, a data values advocate whose work is grounded in community leadership, participation, and grassroots change. I could read her entire bio, but I feel like it would be more interesting if she told us something that we do not know or that most people don't know about her. So ladies and gentlemen, as Furaha Lydia walks to the stage, a round of applause, and she's right here. Please do not stop clapping until she gets to the stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Furaha. One thing I get asked a lot is whether I'm always happy. Furaha means happiness. And yes, I do laugh a lot. Today, I'm here to tell you a story. So please stay with me. I stand here before you as a youth storyteller, a data values advocate, and a community manager at Maono Space, a program by the Open Institute in Malindi, Kilifi County, and yes, I come from Kenya. So imagine a 17-year-old girl, shy, fresh from high school. She had no idea what she wanted to do with her life. But she had a cousin. And every evening at dinner, this cousin will talk about her work. She will talk about community work, the fun they're having with friends, traveling to rural villages and change. But what interested her even more was the packet of milk and the loaf of bread her cousin would come home with every day in the evening. So one day she accompanied her cousin to a community outreach. And that's when her journey in community work began. She learned to facilitate, to train, to create awareness in the community, to show up for local initiatives. She was all in. But through it all, something kept nagging at her. She noticed she would hear more about community problems in meetings, project inception meetings, when she was learning about her role in the project, than she would hear it in the communities. She participated in data collection after data collection in the community, and all the insights, the knowledge, and findings would all leave when external actors' project cycle ended. But she remained in the community, together with her trained peers, with no resources to implement and solve local problems. So they did what communities do. They organized themselves into community-based organizations and kept going with the work. That 17-year-old girl stands before you today. And this is the youth story. It has always been the youth story. I'm sure there are many of us inside this room whose story began just like mine. Showing up without being invited, showing up without being paid, showing up without even being believed that you knew what it is that you're doing. Many years later, after my work in the Open Institute, I got to interact with data and really see that it's not that complicated. But through the fellowship for the data values advocate, I got to really learn how to use the tools and how to design programs. And my experience is what inspired Evidence Mkononi, a community project that I led. When I was designing this project, I did not design it as an outsider bringing tools to the community. I designed it as a young person who had stood inside the gap, building a bridge to others like me, to others I work every single day alongside in my work at Maono Space. Evidence Mkononi is a training program that aims to bring tools and data to the people who are already doing the work in the community, the people closest to the problems, so that they have the ability to produce, to interpret, and use data to solve for their local problems. We implemented this project with 8 community-based organizations who work in Malindi. They already work in matters disability inclusion, that is the Malindi Albinism Network, Chela Environmental Youth Group that works in environmental matters and smart agriculture, Hope for Future, who work in mental wellness and also promoting education for vulnerable young people, Action for Empowerment, who work in women's rights, Mtoto Bora, who work to improve the child rights and safeguarding for children, MADCA, Malindi District Cultural Association, who work to preserve culture in the community, the Mijikenda culture. So these 8 community-based organizations, they went through the whole data pipeline through Evidence Mkononi. They got to build surveys to collect data on the issues they are already working on. They got to interpret their own data and to even build dashboards through different tools, the use of different tools. And what they found was very surprising for their own communities. They got to understand their communities better and how to solve their local problems in a much better way. It sharpened the advocacy, sharpened how they now design for their own communities, but most importantly, it built their confidence for them to know that these data tools, when you talk about data, it's not something so far removed from their communities. They got to interpret their own data, and this is what data sovereignty looks like. Not data about communities, but data by communities, owned by them, produced by them, and used by the communities themselves. When you look around Kenya, Africa, and the whole globe, young people are not waiting. Young people are already in their neighborhoods collecting data. Young people are building initiatives and innovations through even mobile phones. Young people are facilitating in their communities, in places with no electricity and with no budgets. They show up even on Saturdays. They show up in evenings after their daily hustle. They show up for their communities because communities are not just assignments to them. This is where they live, this is where they build, and this is their future. So when we stand and say that young people are the leaders of tomorrow, that's not true. Or ask, why are young people not engaged? It has never been about engagement. It has never been about ability. It has always been about power and sustained investments. So to all of us, all institutions in this room, I would want to ask you, are your institutions ready to build not just youth potential, but what they are doing right now in this future, to fund it, to scale it, to mentor it, and ensure it shapes many more possibilities for the young people across the globe? So I came into this sector at 17 because of a packet of milk and a loaf of bread. But what has kept me going, it has been seeing young people doing the work without funds, without tools, without even skills sometimes, but building the future they want. I'm so happy to be living in this future, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Another round of applause to Furaha. Now, this has been a very exciting talk because if you are paying attention to my opening remarks, I sort of mentioned or hinted on some of the things that she has talked about. So I was taking notes. I hope you did too. And if you didn't, you'll really, really suffer during the question and answer session. So please take notes. So Furaha has mentioned that meaningful change often begins closest to the communities. And young people and communities are not just beneficiaries of systems, they should be shaping them. And also what came up frequently in her talk is that you need to show up. Whether it's tough, whether it's challenging, whether you don't see the opportunities, always show up. And sometimes leadership begins with the people identifying a problem in their own communities and deciding to act. So on this very important question, I'll give you an example. It's not data related, it's not space related, but it's more personal. So I recently went to a physiotherapy session and I asked this guy, the person who was doing it, how did you get into physiotherapy? And he said it's not something he studied in school, but he had a relative who had a stroke. And every time the relative used to go for a physiotherapy session, he would go into the room with him and then he would see. So remember the analogy, monkey see, monkey do. That's basically what he used to do. So they stopped going to the sessions because they were very expensive, and now he was doing it on his own to a point where it's now his professional career. So I hope you also take something from that example. And also, Furaha mentioned something very important, something that has been coming up in the conversations that we've been having since yesterday, data sovereignty. So it's not only for community, but for the community. And it always starts at the grassroots. So her question to the institutions was, are you ready? So with that, next up we'll hear from speaker whose name I had to pronounce, I think 10 times, just for me to get it right before I pronounce it. But we'll hear from Mirado Rafeno Mahenitsoa, who is working to bridge the data skills gap in Madagascar while opening pathways for young people. So he has come up, but please clap until he gets onto the stage. So he will give us his talk, and then I will do the same reflections, and then we'll move to the next segment. Over to you, Mirado.
80% of young people are unemployed in Madagascar. I work every day with data, and I couldn't answer that question. My name is Mirad Rafen Maintsu. I am a data practitioner, I'm a teacher, and a data values advocate from Madagascar. I started my career as a software engineer in 2019. And back then, there was this saying, who holds the information holds the power. But then, somewhere during my master's, I realized it's not who holds the information who holds the power. It's actually who knows how to use it. So I decided to switch to data. And I struggled. I was confused about the different roles in the field. And I had no mentor. And I had to learn on the job. But I liked it. And as I gained experience, I worked at an NGO. And that's where I really saw that data changes lives. That it touches people even in the most remote areas. And that's when I really fell in love with social impact of data. But with that, I realized something as well. I had to figure out everything on my own. No community, no mentor. And I told myself, when I have enough experience, I'm going to build what I needed to the next generation. In 2023, I started teaching. I started teaching data and business intelligence to undergraduate students. And every time I teach, I get more inspired. Seeing the students interested, wanting to enter the field, and wanting more. I wanted to give them what I didn't have back then. And that's what led me to lead a project called Shape Your Data Career within the Global Shapers community. It is a 4-week workshop that introduces young people to data jobs, give them practical skills, and connect them with professionals. And the result was overwhelming. Like, we couldn't respond to the demands. So the demand was there, and the gap was real. And that's when Data Bridge Madagascar was born. Data Bridge Madagascar has a mission to bridge the gap between the young Malagasy people to the data field. So building what I needed back then to the next generation. And last year, when I saw the Data Values Project application open, I realized it's actually like aligned with what we were already doing. And I applied, I got in, and I'm so grateful, like so grateful. The program gave me tools, it gave me connections, and it gave me a platform. And it made me realize, as a person like working with data every day, I didn't know how to question public numbers. At the same time, official platforms exist, but the data availability is like really, really limited. So how do you question data? How do you question public numbers if there's no data? And that's when the project Magnave was born. Magnave means, is it true in Malagasy? It's a project that teaches young people to question public numbers, to give them the reflex, the critical thinking reflex that most of us were not taught. And it has been like a really great experience. We had our first workshop, and what really stayed with me after that workshop is a story that was shared by a participant. Like, for her to have access to the public data, she had to go physically at the National Statistic Office and bring a USB drive. That was what she did. That's the reality right now in Madagascar. And being here today, is part of the solutions that have been built. We have realized during the project that in Madagascar right now, public data is accessed by luck, but not by law. And we, as young people building initiative, we are giving the students, the young people, the capacity to have that critical thinking to question those public numbers. And being here today, as I said, is like an experience to be grateful for. We have been supported by the Data Values Project because they saw that we are doing the work. And what we need to change is simple. Public data accessibility should be given by law, but not by luck. And there are already like young people like us that are doing the work, like solving actual problems, building concrete solutions. We are not alone in this. And when we talk about that, we should not wait for the next generation to act. We are already here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mirat. So, right now, it's not who holds the information that has power. It's the person that knows how to use it. And we learned from Mirad's story that he was always learning on the job, which might be tough, but showing up makes sure that it's easier. And also, he's working to bridge the gap between young people in the industry and the people who are already established. So thank you so much for that. And I hope that you have also taken some points home from the two presentations. So they remind us that young people are not waiting for the future, and they're certainly not waiting for permission. So for this next part, as they prepare the stage for the next panel discussion, which I will introduce, we're going to have a short interactive game. And I would like the lights to be switched on because this is going to be either embarrassing or very encouraging. So please turn the lights on in the room, and then I'll lead the game. Okay. Okay, so we've been talking about serious stuff since yesterday and even today, so I know our brains are very tired, so transitioning directly to the next session might be a bit too much. So this game is a very scientific exercise, so please, to KNBS, I request that you please not question my methodology. So how many of you are familiar with the game Put a Finger Down? Yeah, I see some hands in the room, so those are the people who are chronically online. So how it's going to run is you're going to have both your hands up, all your fingers pointing to the sky. And then when I read a question, I'll say, put a finger down if you've done this. If you have done it, you put one finger down. If you haven't, your finger stays up. And then that way you'll get to know who can be easily approached during the networking session. So let's do a dry run. Put a finger down if you've ever worked from home in your pajamas. I see so many fingers have gone down. Put a finger down if you've attended a meeting and thought this really could have been an email. Put a finger down if you've ever missed a meeting because you genuinely forgot about it. I know I'm a victim. Put a finger down if you've ever sent an email to the wrong person. Put a finger down if you've ever had a technology fail during an important presentation. And then this one is very personal because I saw most of you yesterday. Put a finger down if you've taken a photo of a presentation slide, knowing very well you may never open it again. Put a finger down if you've ever joined an online meeting, said good morning everyone, and realized that you were on mute. Put a finger down if you've ever accidentally started speaking while still muted. Oh, that's a... okay, and the last one. Put a finger down if you have genuinely made a friend through work. Okay, so I see most of the fingers are down. Please note who has all the fingers down. And those who still have their fingers up, kudos to you. Now we have proven that you're actually humans in the corporate world. So now that we've confirmed that we're human, we are going to move to the next part of our conversation, which is going to be very high level. And to moderate this session is Yariwo Kitio, who is the founder of GeoHabari, a Pan-African platform dedicated to amplifying African tech innovation and building a growing cross-continental community focused on reshaping how African tech stories are seen and told. And just like the previous speakers, Yariwo can tell us something about herself that most people do not know, that isn't in her bio. So ladies and gentlemen, Yariwo, as she comes to the stage and welcomes her panelists. A round of applause. Do not stop clapping until she gets to the stage.
All right, good morning. So I will guide us through the next session, but before I do that, I'm going to try and answer John Mark's question on something that's not on my bio. I am definitely a daughter of this beautiful continent we get to call home. I am named after a place because we really believe in places where I come from. So that is why I am called Yariwo, because there's a place in Kenya that is very beautiful and is called Riwo. So I am from there. All right, so I will transition us to the next session. And I want to I'll start this session with Mirad's last sentence before he left. He said, "We are here. Young people are here. We are building through hoops. We are building in spite of. We are shaping our communities. And Lydia and Mirad have shown us that. So I will not dilute their presentation because we can all tell that young people are builders, despite of. And so allow me to welcome this next panel, which is really focused on 4 key themes: leadership, power, sovereignty, responsibility, and accountability. And that is the role of institutions. I think someone else said, Lydia said before she left this stage, are you ready? Are you supporting young people? Are you supporting us? Are you intentionally investing in the systems that we are building? Are you intentionally and genuinely mentoring young people? And the Slido makes this point come home very clearly. The Slido highest score was young people want leadership and decision-making power. And so this next panel really focuses on what do governments, institutions, decision makers, CSOs, private sector, yourself who's in this room, what do we need to do differently if we're really serious about building and investing in the young people in this room? And this next panel is going to show us just that, because they're already shaping systems from within. It's a very dynamic panel, a mix of both young professionals and senior professionals in the industry, cross-cutting different sectors. And so allow me to welcome my very dynamic mix of panel that's very important and very equally important to this conversation. I'm going to start with Charles. Sorry, he allowed me to drop the doctor, just in case. So allow me to welcome Dr. Charles on stage. If you think of Charles, I was on his LinkedIn. When you think about talent in this continent, when you think about talent and innovation ecosystems and the role of industry, Charles is that bridge. Charles pushes for innovation, academia, and talent to speak to industry and to speak to decisions across Rwanda through AIMS, which is the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences. So allow me to welcome Charles on stage. And as usual, please cheer until he gets on stage. My next panelist is Diana Ilako. So Diana is a reminder that data sovereignty, data governance, and privacy in this continent is in safe hands. Diana is a lawyer. She actually recently graduated with a Master's of International Law in Governance, Data Governance. And so, yeah, that's a good time to clap. Young people are building and shaping systems and communities that love to see, and Diana is a really good manifestation of that. And so allow me to welcome Diana on stage. She's currently the data advisor at GIZ. So let's cheer as she comes on stage. And then last but definitely not least is Lucy Pearson. Lucy works with the Global Partnership and has over 15 years of experience working in the international development sector across Africa, Asia, and Europe. But something struck me with Lucy's bio. Lucy has worked with think tanks. Think tanks are very key components when it comes to the development sector. And she's really primary when it comes to linking think tanks and disaster risk reduction. We do know the role of think tanks in shaping innovation and where young people sit within this particular ecosystem of think tanks. So allow me to welcome Lucy on stage as well. Thank you for that. So yeah, I think as I take the stage, are you guys mic'd up? You can just check that. All right. I think I will also take a seat, if the floor lets me. I hope, yes, you can hear me. So my role today is to challenge your thinking. So if you're from government, from institutions, from CSO, from private sector. If you're in this room, my role today is to challenge how you look at young people, how you look at innovation, and how we look at intentional investment in the young people in this room and across the entire globe. So before we start, I'm going to start with an opening question for all my panelists. So we've definitely seen that young people are building, right? So that's not in question. We are talented, we are dope people, we are building despite of. But I'm curious to know your perspective. I think I'm going to start with Diana. I'm curious to know your perspective on what meaningful leadership looks like in practice. When you say we're giving the young people leadership and decision-making powers, what does that look like in practice?
Thanks, Yariwo, for your question. I think even before I answer your question, I'd like to reflect on what the topic means to me as a data protection and data governance advisor. So we're talking about youth leadership in data-driven innovation. So what this means then to me and every professional in the same profession as myself is even when it's contributing to policies and even systems, be they data systems, space intelligence systems, AI systems, to get these solutions that they are creating. And so then leadership in that sense would look like actually giving people, young people responsibility and them being accountable when it comes to the solutions that they are creating. And I think either Furaha or Mirado actually spoke on how an element that you can actually put into consideration when you are trying to bring out this meaningful leadership. And I think I want to speak about it again, which was in investing in capacity and infrastructure, especially when it comes to data literacy and digital gaps, because digital tools, because there's gap in this, and there's a huge disparity across different regions in terms of access to these digital tools, internet connectivity. And you see, even as we want to push young people to make decisions in these rooms that we're inviting them to, we still need to ensure that they have the necessary tools, the capacity, the infrastructure to actually be able to bring meaningful ideas and shape conversations, even as we are trying to make them make decisions in the spaces that you're bringing them to. And maybe one last thing I'd also want to say is also maybe making young people visible in these data and space systems. Now moving from just having them sit in the background, because we appreciate that they're now developers, they're now analysts, they're now creating solutions. And now when we have data, we move to policy. Policy has outcomes, we are able to measure these outcomes. So giving young people platforms, and platforms where they're able to have influence. So, and when they have influence, we now move from symbolic inclusion, but them having access and even having a voice. Yes, thank you.
That is very well put. Thank you, Diana. I love some of the highlights you've talked about. Visibility is not just having us in the room or at the table, equipping us with the resources and holding us accountable and responsible. Charles, I want to have you next. I'm a big fan of your LinkedIn as well. And I know AIMS has hacked, there's something interesting you're doing in Rwanda. And I want to bring some of the behind the scenes. I'm trying to give you guys the inside scoop to the work that they do, right? And one of the things that we're talking about here is meaningful leadership when it comes to the youth. And I know you have a different approach at AIMS on how you're actually showing that to the young people. And I want you to talk about that, to just challenge some of the thinking in the room.
The majority of people in Africa are young people. What is it in your system, your program, that in one way or another will assist young people? So at times we're intentional in that. We are building capacity for my own perspective. If young people are doing what just listening to the question is like, what is serious? It's actually the leadership opportunity. And leadership starts now. Many of us in this room 10 years ago were not in that position that we're in. Someone hold your hand to give you what they call the first intention, for you to be that kind of director general or whoever you are. We need to be given the opportunity to move now. And I think I like that concept of saying, you for tomorrow. That concept, we know that tomorrow is not going to be better. But there's always a tomorrow. Don't push the leadership always to be that tomorrow. Today there's a tomorrow, tomorrow has a tomorrow. The leader of today, I think we shift our mindset. You give them not only the space, like what I said. That when you design your program, you should not be add-on. It should be a reflection of the system that's happening in you. So at times we need to be intentional because we realize that in Africa it's not the talent that we need, it's usually the opportunity that we are in. We have seen it previously that the global partnership and the level of advocates here. How many of these people will so for us, the responsibility to really be in space. Acknowledge that what I call is very intentional youth co-creation partnership. You should be seen as partners. They might not have the skill that you have, but they might come with new way of looking at it, maybe better way of looking. Because the world is evolving. So that's all I can say that to answer the question. Happy to answer the question.
The youth as co-creators. I like that. And I think everyone should try and reflect on that. And I want to go to Lucy. Think tanks across Africa, Asia, Europe. And we know how think tanks are very key when it comes to policy analysis, right? And I'm curious to know, from your experience and your view, what does meaningful leadership look like when it comes to engaging the youth?
Yeah, I think our organizations get it wrong all the time. I think too often we say that we've empowered young people because we've invited them to a consultation. That's participation, it's valuable, it's not power. And in practice, meaningful leadership begins, as Diane said, when young people can influence outcomes, not conversations. And I think that looks like four things. First of all, it looks like young people helping to set priorities, not just commenting on ones that have been defined and decided previously. So for example, when a government is designing a national data strategy, young people should be helping decide what priorities are in that before pen has been put to paper, not on draft 4 of that. Secondly, it looks like young people helping to decide where money is spent and not just applying for funding themselves. So they should be included in the selection committees of investment, of innovation funds. Thirdly, it looks like young people sitting on governance bodies, whether that's on data governance councils or AI oversight bodies. Young people need to have formal roles in those processes. And finally, it looks like organizations that are being accountable for whether youth voices change decisions, not just whether they were in the room. So too often institutions report on how many young people attended a workshop. And a more meaningful measure would be what changed as a result. Did youth input change what was included in a national data strategy, or change the direction of a funding decision or a governance framework? Presence is really easy to measure, but influence, it's harder, but a much more important metric. One really easy tool that one can use is to say, if all young people left the room, would any decisions change? If the answer is no, they were participants, they weren't leaders.
I love that. My greatest takeaway from that is presence is very easy to measure, influence is very difficult, and I think that's what we're trying to showcase here on this panel. How do we move beyond symbolic engagement to meaningful investment in youth? I'm trying to find out, is my time up, John Mark? I'm seeing it's red. Does that mean I go on, or I'm done? Oh, I have 6 minutes. Oh, perfect. I panicked through that. So I'm going to throw it back let's go back to Diana, right? You're part of my young voice on this panel. right? And as we're trying to demystify what youth engagement looks like and what we really want to see for institutions, I want us to answer the opposite of that. What are we getting wrong, or what are institutions getting wrong when it comes to meaningful leadership? And hopefully I want the audience to simmer on that and think about the programs you're rolling out, the priorities you're setting based on her answer, navigating the spaces she's been in, on what institutions are getting wrong when it comes to youth engagement.
Thanks, Yariwo. So I think I want to pick up from what Lucy just mentioned. So I think where institutions are getting it wrong, and I speak because I've had the privilege to work in a development partner, I've been able to work in civil society, I've also been able to work in the public sector and government institutions, and I've seen that these are challenges that cut across board. So is on that issue on assuming that youth engagement is just a matter of representation. And I see it even when there are conferences like this, there are workshops where you just bring the youth on board just to tick a box, just to say that you had youth in the room, maybe because you have a KPI that we need to reach a certain number of youth within this project period, we need to just have them inside the rooms. But remember I said, if we actually have youth in the room or sitting on a table, but they're not, their voices are not being heard, then it's just symbolic inclusion. There's no influence at all. And we need to move away from that and ensure that we actually give these young people an opportunity to add and contribute meaningfully. And I think a second thing I'd like to also mention, and I think for this one we really need intervention. We really need to sit down, even as stakeholders, as everyone participating in all this conversation in the ecosystem. And it's something we actually talked about just before we entered this session, and it was about short-term projects and just launching pilot projects. So we find that this is something that has become so common, where you have very nice youth-led innovation. So you just only support it for a very short period of time. So you may be supporting in terms of testing the innovation, creating prototypes, and just running it through the pilot phase. Then once the pilot phase comes to an end, that's the end of that innovation. So when that happens, you've not been able to actually test that innovation, you've not been able to scale it, you're not able to tell the impact that this innovation actually had. And most of the time, these are very important solutions that the young people are coming up with. So what then happens, the young people are always coming up with solutions, coming up with new ideas, instead of actually getting the support to sustain the initial ideas, which are very good, whatever they had already started. So they're not given support in terms of strengthening that and investing that. So I think because we are now talking about data-driven innovation, we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to rewire our minds and actually look at it from a point of not just starting projects, not just doing pilots, but looking at it from a point of, if I hold the hand of this youth or this young professional who has this very good idea, what is the value years down the line? How can we make it sustainable? How can we scale it? How can it bring a lot of impact? So I think that's a challenge to all stakeholders in the room, in your individual capacity, even in the capacity of where you work as a stakeholder here. So I think those are the main challenges that I've actually seen as a young professional. Yeah.
I have just been told my time is up, so I'm going to go to Charles and then Lucy. In 30 seconds, I want you guys to give us the one commitment or action that everyone in this room should live with. Commitment or action that you'd want people to think about and really be intentional about as we leave this stage. Or 30 seconds.
That's very 5 seconds, my time starts now. I think it's to start being uncomfortable in our leadership position when young people are not around us. If we're a leader, Lucy said it, one of the KPI to assess your leadership is really to say how many young people are you mentoring, basically. Provide them with opportunity, which at EMS we call it work-integrated learning. They're going to learn because they're young, but they need to be given the space where they can have power and influence to move things differently. That's my commitment. That's a challenge I put to the people. Thanks.
What are you, Lucy, in 30 seconds?
So I think my challenge to all of us, whether we're a government or an NGO or a multilateral, is to identify one decision-making process in your institution and make youth participation a permanent feature, not a one-off trial or a little project. But I also completely agree with Diana that long-term support is just so important. We need to have more investment in peer networks, mentorship, practical applications, youth being embedded in other organizations so they can have meaningful investment, meaningful time there, and meaningful impact on those organizations. Let's move away from training more youth. It's giving them those longer term opportunities.
Thank you so much. This has been my incredible panel. Once again, Lucy, Charles, and Diana. Please, a round of applause as we leave the stage.
Before you exit the stage, I'm being informed that you'll take a quick group photo, a panel photo, and then we'll proceed with the next session or segment.
Can we clap until they get to their seats?
All right, so I'd like to request the lights be turned on again, because this is the part where I choose people who are going to answer a question. And if you look to the screen, we have a question that says, if we are serious about the future and investing in young people, we must. So this is a prompt, and once the lights come up, I will pick a few people, 3 or 4 maximum, and I would like to remind you that you need to keep it brief and to the point. So we do not want a TED Talk style answer to the question or to the prompt. So once the lights are on, I've seen a hand shoot up. I've seen another hand shoot up. I've seen more hands shoot up. Another one has shot up. Okay. So where's the mic? Yeah. So we'll start from the front here. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, if I to complete this sentence, it would be, if we are serious about the future and investing in young people, we must stop treating youth participation as a symbolic moment, as it was mentioned, and start treating them as a shared responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. A round of applause. And then I saw another hand, that was the second. She already has a microphone.
Thank you. My name is Habi Diallo, and I'm an F ambassador with the African Institute of Mathematical Science. So for me, if we are serious about investing in young people, we must shift from consultation to co-ownership, as it has been said already. And secondly, treat youth insight as professional consulting. So value their lived experience as a formal qualification. And lastly, sustain mentorship pairing young leaders for multi-year advocacy. So I don't know how many institutions are here, but if everyone commits to take one young people and bring a mentorship program, and so in 10 years, where will we be? Thank you.
Thank you. So we have exactly 1 minute, and these 2 people I had already pre-selected, Billy and Kimani Nyoike. So Billy, you can finish the prompt, and then Kimani will close it off.
Thank you. You had given me the heads up. My name is Billy from Spacefika. We are a space company based here in Kenya. And so if you're serious about investing in the young people, I think what should happen is, someone said, and I really reflected with that, is when the outcome of or of whatever you're doing is coming out, right? Have you made sure that if the young people were not in the room, that if the young people were in the room, and have they affected the outcome of whatever decision was to happen? So I believe that young people should affect the outcomes and always keep on asking, have the young people affected the outcome?
Okay,
Yes.
time is up, so we will not take the question from Kimani for now because we have very limited time. But it's not really me moderating a session without me telling a very bad joke. So the joke that I've always wondered is anytime I'm in the bathroom, if your towel could tell a joke, it would probably have a dry sense of humor. Yeah, so thank you very much for the reflections. And now I am going to hand it to Yariwo Kitio, who's going to close off this first session, and then she will hand it back to our main moderators for the day. You will not see me again, so a round of applause for me as well for an excellent job. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure moderating the session. Over to you, May.
I will take 2 minutes to close off this youth session. When I was told to do the closing remarks, I thought, how do I go about this? And I thought, how do I talk to my peers? What do we talk about when we are building, when we are coding, when we are cleaning data, and when we are presenting to decision makers? And so that's what my closing remarks will be about. And so to add more weight and to insist on what the panelists and the speakers before me have said, the first one is it is very paramount that we in this room collectively move from symbolic youth engagement to intentional investment in the youth, the systems they're building, the mentorship programs, and not just adding them as add-on voices to the room, but actually having them shape the systems, the priorities, and the policies that eventually leave that room. That would be my first closing remark. The second one is, I don't know if anyone here plays chess, but I thought about chess. And normally when you're playing chess, there's something called a checkmate. And when someone says checkmate, it means they've done a definitive winning move and they're going to win that game. And so for me, what this means is youth engagement, and not just symbolic engagement, but intentional investment in what the speakers before me have said is the checkmate moment for me. I think investing in youth is how we move systems, is how we power resilience in innovation and technology across the continent and across the globe. And so for any policymakers who seated here, institutions, CSOs, global partners, governments, and individuals, invest in your youth. That is your checkmate moment. And last but not least, as we leave this 4-day event on Friday, I would love to hand over the ball to the leadership, decision makers, again, institutions, policy makers, and governors. And I think it's very clear that young people are building. And so I want to officially say that the ball is in your hands. We are building, and we are waiting for you to invest in us. We're waiting for you to invest intentionally and giving us the decision-making power and the leadership that we need. And I think the room has spoken about that on the Slido. We need decision-making roles, we need support in what we are building. I think for me, that is how we move this panel and youth engagements out of festivals, forums, events, into actual field engagement, into having more leaders and more mirads across the continent. That would be my closing remark for this particular session. And before we leave the room, there's an inclusion pavilion. Please make sure to pass by there. We have a lot more stories happening there, and young people are running that pavilion. From data advocates, data value advocates, please pass by there and engage with the young people in that pavilion. And as I hand this over to the MC, Carissa, who I will call on stage, I'm so happy I remembered your name. Can come on stage. As he comes on stage, please clap for her. I hope that was mine, not Carissa's. And last but not least, the closing exercise for this room, as Carissa takes the stage, is I would love for the leaders, KSA leadership, global partnership leadership, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics leadership, Government of Kenya leadership. If you've not noticed, I'm calling the co-conveners of this conference. I want to start with those ones. I want you to take the lead in this room and approach young people seated in this room. I think we are used to young people doing very high pressure. You're like, this guy has 2 minutes, this guy has 30 seconds, you need to say so he can leave. Can we change that during this tea break? Let's have you talk to the young people, ask them what they're building. Even if you don't know what AI is, ask them what is this AI thing you keep yapping about. Ask them what they're building and what support they want. What hand-holding do they want? And for the young people in this room, I want you to be bold when they approach you. Talk about the challenges you have and what intentional investment in you looks like. That's the end of this session. Thank you so much.
Another big round of applause for your Rivo. Love the name. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what an inspiring conversation. This morning we've heard from young leaders who are not waiting for the future to arrive, they are actively shaping it. Did you hear that from them? There's no future, they're actively shaping it now. They're designing solutions, they're influencing policy, and they're challenging assumptions. They're building communities, and they're proving that leadership is not determined by age, but by the vision, courage, and action. And one message has come through: the future has already started. It's been written today by young people who are using data, statistics, technology, and space innovation to solve real-world challenges and create opportunities for others. So I leave this session encouraged from each one of the conversations we had today. So please give a round of applause for the moderators and the panelists and every youth person who came to present today. Louder. Before we leave, I have a few announcements. Tea and refreshments are now being served on the 3rd floor. And also the community sessions are taking place. Look at your Zoho Backstage app to see where they're being held in different rooms. Then lunch will be served from 12:30 to 2. So you use that time for your lunch. And while you're having your lunch or having your tea break, remember to visit the different stations that they have. There's the interactive board, there's the art board, there's data inclusion, and also on the 8th floor you can view the national park with binoculars for the future, for the safari afar. Tomorrow, I know you won't see me again until tomorrow. I might be popping in the different rooms, but tomorrow at 8 o'clock once again, be here. If you had somebody you connected with yesterday and they're not here today, tell them you missed out. Come tomorrow as well, all right? Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.